This could not be more stupid.
And so to the argument that the administration makes, which is this is to bring American manufacturing back, to have iPhones manufactured here in this country.
Global trade has been this enormous unlock for the U.S. economy and our prosperity. And anytime we take it down, we get especially hurt. This is the definition of stupid, is doing something that hurts yourself while hurting others. The notion that somehow we're just dying for more. First off, we're the second largest manufacturer in the world behind China. We have a lot of manufacturing already. The Cato Institute did a survey about manufacturing. Well, 80% of Americans think we should have more manufacturing.
Did you know that Trump's casinos went bankrupt 4 separate times? Not once, not twice, but 4 bankruptcies. And he still calls himself a business genius. Make it make sense. Scott Galloway just performed the most brutal takedown of Trump's so-called business empire, calling it a Jenga tower of delusion. If you've ever wondered how someone can fail upwards so spectacularly,
this is literally the most elegant way I could think of doing this. I used to, Anderson graduate school, I was a graduate student instructor in macro and microeconomics. And we used to talk about tariffs the way I imagine they talk about leeches in medical school, saying, if we're looking to alienate the largest trading partners in the world and shove them into the hands or the arms of China, Japan, South Korea, and China are having talks for the first time in a while. If we're looking to reduce our purchasing power, our prosperity, take our markets down, you believe they ever did this? So I don't know what the end game is here, other than somebody who believes he's a great deal maker and can go country by country and figure out a better deal. But we've lost so much credibility that I think the structural long-term damage here is really significant.
This video explains the smoke and mirrors behind the golden Trump facade. And trust me, it's way worse than you think. So Trump walks into Atlantic City like he owns the place, which technically he did for a while, promising everyone his casinos would basically print money. The greatest casinos ever built, he probably shouted while pointing at some blueprints. Fast forward a few years and surprise, those same amazing businesses were filing paperwork at bankruptcy court. When Trump opened the Taj Mahal back in 1990, he called it the 8th wonder of the world. But just 1 year later, that wonder turned into a blunder when it became his first bankruptcy filing. This wasn't some small oopsie either. The casino was drowning in nearly $3 billion in debt, and Trump himself, nearly $900 million in personal debt. That's billion with a B, folks. Instead of making it rain at his casino, Trump was making it rain paperwork in bankruptcy court. As part of this first bankruptcy mess, Trump had to give up half his ownership stake in the Taj Mahal. Oh, and remember that fancy yacht and airline he loved showing off? Gone and gone. Nothing says successful businessmen like having to sell your toys to pay your bills. Though, I guess in Trump's dictionary, successful means completely broke, but still somehow on TV. But wait, there's more. Just 1 year later in 1992, the Trump Plaza Hotel joined the bankruptcy party. He'd bought this New York hotel for $390 million back in 1988 and somehow managed to rack up $550 million in debt on it. Math was clearly not his strong suit. The bankruptcy deal forced him to give 49% of the plaza to 6 different lenders. He got to keep his CEO title, which was nice, I guess, but he didn't earn a salary and couldn't even make decisions about how the hotel was run. So basically, it was like being CEO of absolutely nothing. You'd think after 2 bankruptcies, Trump might have learned something about business. But nope! In 2004, Trump Hotels and Casino Resorts took its turn in bankruptcy court. This filing included the Taj Mahal, again, Trump Marina, and Trump Plaza casinos in Atlantic City, plus a riverboat casino in Indiana for good measure. Total debt this time, about $1.8 billion. During this bankruptcy, Trump's ownership share dropped from 47% to 27%. But don't worry, he was still the largest shareholder. Winning the bankruptcy grand finale came in 2009 when Trump Entertainment Resorts, formerly Trump Hotels and Casino Resorts, just a name, changed, not an actual business improvement, filed for Chapter 11. This time, Trump blamed the 2008 recession after missing a $53.1 million bond payment. The company was such a disaster that Trump actually resigned as chairman, and his ownership got slashed to just 10%. All that was left was his name on the buildings, like some kind of participation trophy for bankrupting 4 businesses. Here's the truly bizarre part. While normal people would hide in shame after one business failure, let alone four, Trump somehow spins these bankruptcies as brilliant strategy. He actually said, "I used the law 4 times and made a tremendous thing. I'm in business. I did a very good job." Only Trump could describe multiple bankruptcies as doing a very good job. It's like failing a test 4 times and telling everyone you're a genius because you know how to use an eraser. What's really happening behind all these bankruptcies? A pattern as predictable as Trump's hair in a windstorm. Step 1, borrow insane amounts of money. Step 2, fail to make the business profitable. Step 3, use bankruptcy laws to wriggle out of obligations. Step 4, walk away while investors, contractors, and employees get stuck with the mess. It's less of a business strategy and more of a how to make others pay for your mistakes. Playbook. Chapter 11. Bankruptcy is supposed to help businesses reorganize and continue operations rather than completely liquidating. It's meant as a lifeline for viable companies with temporary problems. But Trump treated Chapter 11 like it was just another business tool. Borrow money, fail to pay it back, declare bankruptcy, rinse, and repeat. Normal businesses try to avoid bankruptcy. Trump's businesses seem to schedule them like regular oil changes. What these bankruptcies really reveal isn't business genius. It's a man who's really good at talking his way into loans and really bad at turning those loans into sustainable businesses. It's someone who excels at escaping consequences while leaving others holding the bag. And it's someone who can somehow fail upward continuously, convincing new investors to trust him despite a track record that would make most business schools use him as a what not to do case study. If bankruptcies were Trump's specialty, then smoke and mirrors was his true art form. Behind the gold-plated facade and tremendous promises lurks a business model so bizarre that major banks eventually refused to touch it, all except one shadowy financial institution that apparently didn't get the memo. What did they know that Trump supporters still don't? Here's the thing about Trump's empire. It's not actually built on successful businesses. Scott Galloway calls it a Jenga tower of delusion, which is probably the most perfect description I've ever heard. Instead of creating actual value, Trump created the illusion of success through aggressive branding, daddy's money, and just saying things so many times that people started believing them. It's like if I kept telling everyone I'm an astronaut despite never having left Earth, except Trump somehow convinced millions of people he was actually walking on the moon. Trump University might be the perfect example of this strategy in action. Remember that educational powerhouse? Yeah, neither does anyone who wasted their money on it. Galloway didn't mince words, calling it a high-end pyramid scheme with PowerPoint slides. Not exactly the glowing review you'd want for your prestigious university. But that didn't stop Trump from marketing it as a golden ticket to real estate success. The pattern was always the same. Promise the moon, deliver a moldy cheese sandwich, then blame the customer for not liking moldy cheese. Trump Airlines followed the exact same playbook. Galloway described it as a masterclass in taking a perfectly functioning business, stuffing it with luxury features no one asked for, running it into debt, and crashing it harder than one of his campaign promises. I mean, who doesn't want to pay extra for gold-plated barf bags while the airline itself crashes and burns financially? And then there were Trump steaks, somehow being sold through sharper image catalogs, because nothing says premium beef like buying it next to electronic foot massagers and light-up shower heads. The true genius of Trump, and I use that term extremely loosely, wasn't in making successful businesses. It was in his ability to fail upward repeatedly. While most people who crash 4 businesses end up living in their parents' basement, Trump somehow convinced new investors to keep throwing money at him. His actual business strategy, according to Galloway, was to slap your name on something, declare it the best thing ever, and when it fails, blame someone, sue someone, and pivot to the next con with zero reflection and a fresh press release. That's not exactly the kind of business strategy they teach at Wharton. What's truly wild is that this same pattern continued right into the White House. Remember those tax cuts that were absolutely, positively going to pay for themselves? Spoiler alert, they didn't. Instead, they blew up the deficit faster than Trump blows up relationships with allied nations. It's almost like promising magical economic outcomes without any realistic plan to achieve them doesn't actually work. Who could have possibly predicted this except literally every economist not on Trump's payroll? But here's the million-dollar question, or billion-dollar if you ask Trump. What's actually holding this whole thing together? It can't be business success, since the businesses keep failing. It can't be his incredible investment record, since he would have made more money just parking his inheritance in index funds. The answer is that there's nothing substantial holding it together. It's a shell game. Trump moves assets around, overvalues properties, undervalues debts, and creates an endless series of LLCs and shell companies that make his actual finances harder to track than a squirrel on energy drinks. The entire empire functions like a giant game of three-card Monte where the queen is never actually under any of the cards. It's up Trump's sleeve the whole time. This explains why Trump fights financial transparency, like a cat fights bath time. Those tax returns, sealed tighter than a submarine door. Those business records, protected by armies of lawyers. The actual numbers would collapse his carefully constructed image faster than a cheap Atlantic City casino. When you're selling the illusion of success rather than actual success, the last thing you want is for people to see the man behind the curtain. Behind the curtain of Trump's presidency stood not a business genius, but a reality TV star playing dress-up in the Oval Office. While 80% of Americans believe we need more manufacturing jobs, only 1 in 5 actually want those jobs themselves. This disconnect between perception and reality perfectly captures Trump's approach to government. Making promises that sound good, but ignoring the complicated truth underneath. When Trump took office, he swore he'd run America like one of his businesses. Given what we now know about those businesses, maybe we should have been more worried. Scott Galloway calls what we got instead CEO cosplay, a 4-year presidential performance where Trump wore the costume of a business leader without actually doing the job. Like those folks who dress up as Superman at comic conventions, Trump had the suit, but none of the superpowers. Think about it. Real CEOs make tough decisions based on data, build capable teams, and create long-term strategies. Trump, he made decisions based on whatever Fox and Friends was discussing that morning, hired family members and yes men, and had the attention span of a goldfish with ADHD. His idea of economic strategy was slapping tariffs on random countries and then bragging about it at rallies. Those tariffs deserve special attention because they show exactly how Trump's performance art presidency actually worked. He'd announced them with big, dramatic flourishes, claiming they'd bring manufacturing jobs flooding back to America. His supporters cheered. The stock market typically tanked, and actual American businesses and consumers ended up paying the bill. It was all show, no substance. But Galloway points out something even more damaging than the tariffs themselves: the total unpredictability of Trump's economic decisions. The inconsistency and uncertainty is worse than the actual tariffs themselves, he notes. Markets hate uncertainty. Business leaders hate uncertainty. Trade partners hate uncertainty. Yet Trump created chaos because chaos got ratings, and ratings were all that mattered to him. What about all those manufacturing jobs Trump promised to bring back? Well, turns out most Americans don't actually want them. According to Galloway, while 80% of Americans believe the country needs more manufacturing, only about 20% are interested in working in a factory themselves. So Trump was making promises based on nostalgia rather than economic reality, like promising to bring back rotary phones in the age of smartphones. His administration operated like a bad reality show where competence got you fired and blind loyalty got you promoted. Remember when Trump suggested injecting bleach might cure COVID? Any legitimate business advisor would have pulled him aside and said, "Sir, perhaps we shouldn't recommend that Americans drink poison." But Trump's team was handpicked for their willingness to nod along to whatever gibberish came out of his mouth. This might seem just incompetent rather than dangerous, but the global consequences were severe. As Galloway puts it, every country in the world is thinking about how they diversify away from doing business with America because they do not know who they are waking up next to. Imagine if your business partner might randomly slap you with penalties, insult you publicly, or change deals on a whim. You'd start looking for more reliable partners too. That's exactly what happened to America under Trump. His approach to governance focused on headlines rather than results, applause lines rather than actual policy achievements. Economic experts began describing the United States as an unserious partner in global affairs, basically the international relations equivalent of being called the class clown. Except this clown had nuclear codes. The real danger in Trump's CEO cosplay presidency wasn't just its ineffectiveness, it was how it eroded trust in American leadership. When the president treats governance like a reality show, the whole country becomes less credible on the world stage. Other nations started making plans that didn't include America, knowing they couldn't count on consistent policies from one day to the next. Trump's supporters often point to the pre-pandemic economy as proof of his business genius. But that's like judging a driver's skill by how fast they go before crashing into a wall. The short-term gains came at the cost of exploding the deficit, alienating allies, and setting up long-term economic problems that we're still dealing with today. Perhaps the most telling assessment comes from Galloway's description of Trump as prioritizing ratings and applause over results. In business, this approach leads to bankruptcy. In television, it might win you an Emmy. In governance, it creates a dangerous illusion of leadership, while the foundations of diplomatic trust and economic stability crumble beneath the surface. So here's the truth behind the curtain. Scott Galloway nailed it when he said Trump has been cosplaying as a mogul since the 80s. The man isn't selling actual business success. He's selling the illusion of it. That shiny gold facade, it's just spray paint covering the cracks. What's remarkable isn't that Trump failed repeatedly. We've seen the evidence. The real head-scratcher is why millions still buy his act. Galloway explains this perfectly. Trump somehow convinced people that incompetence is actually outsider energy, and that failure is leadership. Trump's entire career boils down to a reality TV persona that thrives on chaos and flashbulbs.